Ride is our baby, you know, it's like one of our childs, you know, and, you know, like I've said before, it's you know, it's not my company anymore, but it's still my brand.
We were like a punk band that you couldn't separate. That was our style. Everyone else was all individuals. The entire sport was full of individuals, and we weren't. And that was a difference. Where we went together, we had each other's backs.
We were writing the playbook for something. Like, how often in your life does a totally new sport emerge where you get to make meaningful contribution through having fun?
It's beautiful when you can work with somebody and take from each other and learn and grow and not try to hold each other back.
Back then, Dale and those guys didn't know what this was gonna be. They were just having fucking fun, and somebody's giving us a van and some money. And there's weed in here? Let's go.
We were so hungry to snowboard. It didn't matter. Like, I mean, there were days where, you know, we didn't have any money to even eat, but we were just like, dude, we're snowboarding, we're out in Tahoe. There was no better dream than that.
When I had left to the time I had come back, there was a lot of mutual respect of what we were both doing. And when I came back, I'm like, I'm at the point in my career where I want to like make projects that elevate the brand, but also elevate the culture. And they were just like, we're in. Like, there was no question.
It's the funnest shit ever. Like, to put a story under your feet and relate to that, that's the best shit. Yeah.
It was amazing to just have full support. They were like, whatever you want to do, we're into it, and we're gonna make it work. That is all I wanted to hear, was just have support to go my own way.
I guess one of the main things that I like about Ride Snowboards is the personalities, and how well the personalities of every individual kind of like rocks with each other, you know, and it kind of works all collectively and together as one.
See the potential. Like, don't produce Britney Spears' 12th album, do her first one. Like, make that person. And Ride did that shit. They made like a lot of careers that I've witnessed next to. Like, I've grown with all these people. I'm like, holy shit, we're all like older and have been getting paid to snowboard greater half of a decade or whatever, you know? Like, that's pretty incredible.
We were a big giant group of kids, you know? But that, on the other hand, none of us really had anything to lose because we were so young.
If you ever met the founder of Ride Snowboards, Tim Pogue, what would you say to him?
I guess I would say thank you.
Signs from the cops saying stand the fuck
The real idea started with Roger Madison. It was Roger Madison's idea, hey, let's start a snowboard company. He was on the tanning bed thing, and then that was down. He needed something new, and he thought snowboarding was going to be something big, and he was right. And so he did some networking, and he figured out who this Jamie Salter guy was, because Jamie's kind of a kingpin at the time in the industry. So they connected first and decided, hey, we'll both put some money in, but we need someone to help us here. And that's when they called me.
I said, would you be interested in leaving to start a new snowboard company with me, with a guy named Roger Madison? He's gonna put up all the money, we're gonna end up with a bunch of equity, and this is gonna be great.
I was sitting at my desk at Burton late night doing a expense report, and my phone rings, and it's Jamie, and I obviously knew him really well from the Kemper days, and he had told me about Roger Madison, had called him, and they're gonna do this new snowboard company called Hardcore Snowboards, and want you to run it for us. And damn near hung up, but talked to him for a little while, and through a couple of conversations, we made an agreement where we could, he would allow me to change the name, and that's why I decided to go. But yeah, that's how it happened. I just got a phone call out of the blue. Let's do this. The news was kind of out. It was mingling around. It was meandering through the halls at ASR. And we're standing there in the hallway like you do at trade shows. And this gentleman we all know very well comes walking up, Russell Winfield. I was in a conversation, and he just comes up and just says, in the classic Russell voice, "Say it isn't so. Say it isn't so."
I can't remember where I heard somebody, "Oh, did you hear Tim's leaving Burton?" And I was like, "Fuck, he is." And I saw him and I said, "Say it isn't so." And he goes, "Oh, it's so."
And I'm like, "Yeah, Russell, it's true. It's true." And as maybe most people don't know this, but at the time, Russell was an AM team level snowboarder, but signed with a contract for Burton. DJ was the Burton marketing director, and I was his team manager. He looks over at DJ and says, "I quit." And then he puts his hand out to me like this and says, "I'm your new team rider." Right in front of my boss, right when I had just quit.
So Roger was a Seattle businessman, bright guy, Harvard grad, definitely knowledgeable. He was the one who had a business here in Seattle already, and he was running a business that sold tanning beds, ironically. Basically, Tim and I and Steph came into his space and freaked everybody out.
For the first 6-9 months, maybe even a year, sharing offices with a tanning bed company was absolutely insane. I mean, you had Pogue with blue hair running around, Mike Hall.
I thought I was going to work for a snowboard company, and I've been working in the windsurfing industry, so I know, what an office looks like when you walk into it, and I was like, I might have walked into the wrong place. This looks like a sun tanning place, or Tim and Steph around here. Is this Ride Snowboards?
And they put me in the middle of the common room, and then after about a week, they were like, "Okay, we need Mike to be in his own office and can't handle the screaming and yelling," because we were trying to make product and get stuff delivered. And we had sales before we even had product.
What I was focused in on was a skateboard market, skateboarding. That was to me what was happening. I knew it was coming. I could see it at the pro level, and you could see it at the mountains, like the snowboarders that used to be skiers, and then the snowboarders that came from the city that are skaters. First of all, they were way better snowboarders, but it was just like, that's where the energy was. And that's where I said, that's where we want to focus.
Yeah, so Rowan and I grew up together since we were before kindergarten. Two little Wisconsin boys growing up in the country on the lake. We rode together every single day possible for our whole lives, forever. And graduating high school, moving out to Breckenridge.
We're talking about in snowboarding right now when everything went kind of from half pipe and alpine to the guys that really changed the game started to street skate on snow. And this is before things went really urban. This was basically like street tricks on snow, and it was guys like Rowan Rogers, guys like Dale Rayberg. They all came out and basically just took over Copper Mountain. And that's when things really started to flare up in snowboarding.
You had the Brushies and the Duck Boys and those guys over there, and then We got the new school guys with Rune and Dale coming in, Jake, showing all the new jibbing stuff. Like that era was just like the groundbreaking, like taking skate to the next level in snowboarding. And that was just, for me, progression of snowboarding is what drew me to it completely. And Ride at that time was the brand.
The style moment I think that really changed everything for me, it was like an awakening, was seeing Rowan Rogers ride in person for the first time. You know, it's like, here's snowboarding, going this way, hardcore. And there's Rowan over there. No one sees it except a small group of people, but I saw it and I'm like, I'm going there. That's the direction I want to try to figure out how to be.
And that's the things that you say.
You know, they did Ride with the People tour, and we got in a fucking van and drove across the country and went and saw everybody. And like, that was not being done on any level in snowboarding.
The fax machine that would spill the orders into the office, like you could see where it came from. They would go to Wisconsin and they would go through there, and then all of a sudden orders from Wisconsin would come in. And then they go, oh, now we're in Pennsylvania, orders from Pennsylvania are coming in.
Ride brought like a skateboard influence in how the team was developed and how we filmed and how we traveled as a group. And, you know, we had an RV and we had a pit bull, and it was like, you know, this little motley crew who were just wild and free. And then they were able to kind of, you know, compartmentalize that into some interesting marketing and use that kind of skateboard formula in snowboarding. And I think that they were disruptive in that way.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was all happening fast, but we were definitely pushing the progression, and it was, you know, kind of our mission to kind of take it out of the, you know, contest where, you know, it gets to compulsory type thing and just kind of boring, and open it all up to the, you know, overall mountain.
Under the April sky, under the April sun, under the April sky. Under the April sky.
I would say it was that first day of that trade show, our first trade show. I had no idea that it was going to be. I knew we had some juice going. There was buzz, and it was like, but to see what we saw, you know, like people signing orders on their backs, and you know, just and the buzz around that booth. We had like throngs of people around this booth, and there's like weed smoke billowing out of the back of it, and just keg beer smell everywhere, but you couldn't even get into the booth to see our product. And the retailers, they didn't care. They're like, I just want to write an order. I don't need to see the product, you know? And so we knew right away. It was like, okay, we got something special going on here.
Tim and Steph were they really knew, like, pulling from inspiration and other people's ideas and allowing like some autonomy over creative design of products or board designs, or that the more that they could lean into that it was like a wealth of energy and creativity that was advantageous for the brand. And so, leaning into the group and helping the group really participate in the creative process resulted in success.
The stuff was so different. Just the shapes were different. The concept was different. The pro model kind of push. Other brands had pro models, but it was just being marketed different.
I think because of the individuality of each one of them, and we let them be who they are. And none of them was really alike. They pushed each other a lot, riding-wise. They all supported each other and respected each other. There was never any bad blood amongst them. They all had each other's backs.
Yeah, like Dale and Roan, I mean, those guys were progressing in a much different direction than someone like Craig Kelly, let's say. I mean, it was just a total different type of riding, and it's something more attainable, I think. You could go to a golf course and you have a picnic table. So I think it was just more attainable to try to be like these ride guys and emulate their actions.
If I ever had anything to do with rail riding and JP ever had anything to do with rail riding, then those dude had everything to do with it, because that's what we grabbed that, went to the backyard and polished it.
When did you first start hearing about the possibility of Ride going public?
Well, it was my idea. No, it wasn't my idea. Yeah, I did six months on the road. No, it wasn't my idea. I had nothing to do with it. I all of a sudden they're like, we're gonna go public, and I'm like, cool. I don't know, what does that mean exactly? And then, I knew I owned some of Ride, but I didn't know what it would mean when it goes public. And then they said, Jamie's gonna do a road show with Tim. I don't know what that means. Okay. I'm gonna go ride a handrail with Dale and Jake and Russell, and then we go public, and now it's on the ticker on CNBC. And next thing I know, every morning we wake up and we watch CNBC and we watch Ride go across the bottom, and now we're traders. And that's sort of, my part of the story. I didn't really know. All of a sudden, I've got a ton of shares because I was part of the early crew, and you're seeing the stock price go up. You wake up in the morning, it's up $3. You do the math, and you go, oh, maybe I'll go back to bed and see what happens.
So Ride was the first snowboard company to go public, and the reason we went public was really, we had to. We didn't really want to, but we tried to go raise money, private money, and it just wasn't there. It was just impossible, even with $6 million in orders.
The reality is they needed money to fuel the business, and the public market was a great place for them to find financing. Put together an IPO. It was very successful. I think in 1995, the company had the second fastest growing stock on NASDAQ, if I'm not mistaken.
It was really emotional. Like our warehouse guys, I've never bought a new car before. I just bought my first new car. Somebody got to put a down payment down on a house. We got to see our employees meet all these new firsts in their lives.
That funded a lot of the spend that got us to the point where I felt like, okay, we've got a really strong foothold in board manufacturing in the United States. We've got a strong foothold in binding manufacturing. I mean, that is the 1-2 punch in the snowboard industry.
We had part of the building, I think, in Preston for a little bit, maybe half the building, and then all of a sudden we had the whole building. And so every time I'd go back to the offices, it was more people, bigger.
I just remember us going, yeah, we're doing a renovation, and it was like, holy shit.
And all of a sudden we had, I think, Liquid, and then we had 5150, and so you could tell the thing was blowing up.
And it was a big deal in terms of, they were the first snowboard company to go public. And it was weird because, God, there wasn't the internet. You weren't getting fed a bunch of information. You would have to dig bits and pieces. And, we all had shares and options, and what the fuck is that,
We had our own travel agent in-house. She was the best travel agent I ever had. Back when you needed a travel agent, because they were booking, the team was flying all over the place. The team was flying, and literally You can't have Ranquet and Pat A and Sweeze buying their own tickets. You got to here's your package. Here, where you're going. Bing, 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 bing.
It's so easy to look back at those days and think, oh, the ride team was big stars and they had all this money and all this, all these great things that came with it. But that lag time in media, there wasn't really the payoff that you would think that you would see. A lot of times it was just 4 or 5 dudes in a van with a dog going up to Loveland Pass and jumping some cornices and building a quarter pipe.
We're the Ride professional driving team. We got the van and the snowmobiles. And I'm Chad Schnacky. I'm Pat Abramson. You'll see us traveling across country. Yep. You see a big white van, not running too well, probably us. Yeah. Charging through.
Pat A, who was like a DJ, and then kind of like Colorado vibes, and then Schnacky, the working man. So everybody could gravitate to certain things, which I thought was super sick.
I want to say that the van probably got the most miles with Schnacky and Pat A, because we graduated to airplanes. So they kept driving until that van was cut in half and turned into a trade show display.
It was like, like most of the things that I thought, I was like, this will be easy. I kept telling everybody, this will be, there's no problem. And I was really wrong about how easy that was going to be. But it was brutal. It took us over a week to get it completely cut in half. Just to get it cut in half. I mean, we thought we were going to be able to cut the engine in half so people could see what an engine looks like cut in half, and that didn't last very long. That had to come out and go away. And once we got it cut in half, we're like, okay, how are we going to make it stand up? How all these sharp metal edges. It was one of those, what are we fucking doing here?
The VTSP, those were like the kids that were a generation above me in Vermont, the Vermont snowboard posse. And like Brushy was part of that. Sweeze was part of that. His real name's Swires, but they'd call him Sweeze, like that's what Russell would call him. Dude, he was insane and really sick grasser method, super strong rider, just kind of dominated.
The story of Capel happened in Issaquah at Tim and Steph's house, and I think the conversation was like, yeah, we want to, Ride wants to do a clothing line, but we don't want to be like Burton where it's just Ride clothing, and we want to actually have another brand. Skate clothing that you'd wear snowboarding, and you'd wear it during the daytime, you'd wear it in the streets, and you wear it riding, and it was total fashion before function because the shit definitely didn't keep you dry or warm. And yeah, the concept of that anyone could ride it and it didn't have to be a Ride snowboard rider.
We did a big photo shoot with John Foster at Mount Hood with all these incredible models. And that was Dale to a T. He picked every model that he wanted in the ads. That stood out. Everyone knew what Capel was. And then before you knew it, I had some of the best riders in Europe asking me to be on that team.
Capel lives on as this moment, this kind of capsule. I think it's like a musician that dies young and whatever, forever lives as this amazing, cool thing.
Jamie was kind of removed as the chairman of the board. They ended up bringing in a more seasoned president who was completely the wrong hire, 100% the wrong hire, but that rubbed Tim the wrong way. And when Tim departed, that's when pretty much everything changed.
There was a definitive time when shit e-braked.
And what was that?
I don't know if, I mean, obviously sales generate the money to let you have fun, but if they're not, it generates the pullback. But I think that, you know, from my point of view at that time, you know, you're like, what's going on over there? You know, what's happening and why, what's the problem, you know? And then the talks of, you know, the ride stock crashed. You know, a lot of that, I had very short interactions with that transition crew when Tim's got pulled away and it was new people and, you know, it was bad juju, man.
I was the only one who didn't vote for the man who took over after Jamie left. And when he came in, it was about 2-3 weeks into it where I like, there's no way, I'm not gonna stick around here. No, the direction that he was gonna take the company, I was like, this is not gonna work. Everything you're talking about is gonna ruin this company and it's gonna nosedive and I'm not gonna be a part of it. And so I quit. It wasn't my company. It was, Jamie was gone, like they were in charge. I couldn't run it anymore. And so I'm not gonna be here anymore.
They didn't understand the brands at all because they weren't from that lifestyle at all. You know, and that's where losing Tim was just like, oh man, you know, he had the vision. And when that was gone, it was left to people who had no business being in those positions. And suddenly they were telling me what they wanted and what to do. And I was just like, really?
There was murmurs and we couldn't figure out what was going on. And Tim's like, I can't do this right now, guys. Come by after work and we'll talk some more. And they left the building. And we went to their house. You could see that the weight of the world was on his shoulders. And he just turns and looks at us and he says, I can't save all of you. And we all just sat there and freaking cried together. It was just like this really fucked up, sad fucking moment. God. It sucked so bad.
It was a hard time dealing with corporate takeover. You know, it was awful. You go through that animosity period where Ride wasn't a fun place to be. You know, you still wanted to be there because you had friends there. And I think that's what everybody really felt more like. If we can hang on long enough, we can make a change. And we did, we held on long enough. And, you know, then in stepped Robert. And when Robert did, it was like, hallelujah, hallelujah. We're back to being Ride snowboards.
And the rally effect of having us get together, you know, Stick, Fank, you look at the Maeve, all the people that were involved, rallying behind the brand and saying, we're gonna do this, we're gonna make this successful, we're gonna continue the growth of Ride. And all of this stuff around us is the noise and stuff we can't necessarily control. We're gonna gain from it as much as we can. We're gonna take advantage of the resources we have as much as we can. We're gonna continue to do what we do and build the brand.
Ready? Hi, I'm
Jeff Brushy.
And I live in San Diego. I'm from Vermont. I drive back and forth a lot and go to different mountains and have fun. Mostly like the YouTube. That's where I get most of my satisfaction from.
What's the YouTube?
The YouTube. The thing that they have that's like a U.
Ah, the YouTube, okay.
And it's a tube.
It was a big number at that time. It was a really big number. And we got a lot of heat for it, but I would tell you that it contributed. There were a few times when we needed a little bit of an oomph, and that gave us, despite the belief of some of the more core guys, I believe that it gave us a talking point, and an important talking point.
When someone mentions Jeff Brushy and they ask me to speak on him or what comes to mind, it's just 1990s half pipes, him doing crails and McTwists and back threes and bobbing his head to music. He was just a style god of the half pipe. He was so sick. And he was the people's champ. Like he was the first guy in the 90s that I ever saw rolling that deep with just swarmed by media. Didn't even have to win, just had to go do his thing because he was so stylish and it was on.
The Brush era, I was so, honored that they had hired Brush, and now I get to ride with Brush. And so I got to do, photo shoots and trips with Jeff Brushy that I was watching at the US Open. And so now I'm with like a legend again, riding with Brush and like doing trips with him and talking to him. And like Brush is such a rad dude too.
I very clearly remember when he left Burton for Ride. In my head, being a young competitor, I was like, oh, well, that's cool. Ride's investing in half-pipe riders. And Jeff Brushy's a legend at Burton, and I know he was selling boards, a ton of boards at Burton. I thought it was just a big move for the industry at the time. I think everyone was surprised that Burton would let a legend go like that. And it was cool that Ride came in and got him going. I think in a lot of ways, Jeff kind of paved the way for me at Ride, I feel like.
He had the name, he had the talent, he had everything going for him at that time. And it was a good deal for us, ultimately. I mean, between the board and binding package that he developed in conjunction with our engineers were pretty spectacular, and we sold a shit ton of them.
Obviously, you knew something was wrong, and I didn't go to the office really hardly ever because you just knew things were not going good. Like, people were getting fired, it was shrinking, and it was almost like you didn't want to go find out like what was going on in that period. And this is before it got bought by K2.
I don't know who was telling who to pay what, but the trash got to be a fucking serious problem.
I was over the trash.
Yeah. That was a serious problem. I mean, there was fucking rats. Not in the building. There should have been. There probably could have been. But outside, I mean, it looked like, holy shit, what happened in here?
I remember getting protos in or samples in and having to run down to Godfrey and say, hey, DHL's down there. They're not gonna release my package unless you cut them a check. So can you cut them a check so I can get my protos?
The garbage, I told you, piled up, and they wouldn't take it away, and I bribed the garbage people with snowboards. The electrical company, they were cutting the power off. Every time they would do, Maeve or me or somebody would go out and grease the guy and give him a snowboard. Come on, dude, we'll come up with the bill. We're gonna come up with the money. Do your kids like to snowboard? Fuck, here's snowboards. Until finally, like the head of, whatever, Puget Sound Energy, they were showing up with clippers, and we managed to get away and them doing that.
God bless him, because Robert was the one that really saved the company and the brand. Because without a buyer, we would have eventually just folded our doors, and we would have been a footnote in history, like the other 300,000 snowboard brands, right?
Along around 1999, as the company struggled to remain public, it's very expensive to be a public company, and the stock languished at around $1, if you can believe it. It was about $35, and having gone through an assorted number of lawsuits, class action lawsuits, because a bunch of people lost a lot of money, we ended up in the middle of defeating a hostile takeover. There was a group out of Boca Raton, Florida, that decided they were going to buy us in the middle of the night, and assorted other things. And so I spent a fair amount of time dealing with investment bankers. We went out and peddled the company, and the most perfect match was really K2 Inc. K2 had a business in Seattle. They were outdoor oriented. They were public. Employees largely had their jobs if they wanted them, if they were willing to do that. And so it made for a relatively smooth transition as acquisitions and sales and businesses go.
I've said publicly for a long time, Mikey LeBlanc was my favorite snowboarder as a kid. To me, the draw was that you could tell he was human. He worked hard for his tricks. They necessarily weren't perfect, but you knew he just grinded for that clip. Like, he didn't just show up and it was like naturally gifted. He was just beating himself down, and he just represented to me, being from Massachusetts, pure New England work ethic. Like, just kind of some aggression, like you see his face, you see the neck muscle popping, and you're like, fuck it, I'm in. This is my guy.
He's the biggest character in snowboarding, and you see that through all his video parts. So obviously he's one of the best snowboarders to ever do it, but mixed with his personality, he's larger than life.
He's a lot of fun to be around. He's always joking. He's got his personalities, but he's a stand-up guy. He's He was like in my wedding. He's like that type of friend, you know, someone that you can go to that's rock solid.
He's a psychopath and doesn't care very much about landings, the quality of landing. Is there a landing?
I always thought he was like kind of like a gnarly dude to be around, and like you don't want to say the wrong thing, because like in the videos, if he couldn't stomp his trick or whatever, he'd like have a meltdown or whatever. But then being able to hang with him, he's like the most soft-spoken, nicest dude ever.
I was riding for M3, and M3 was kind of imploding. Scott Mavis and I had stayed really good friends. I think I might have just reached out and been like, hey dude, like this thing's kind of ending. What would you think about coming back?
He sort of bridged the old with the new at the time. He had familiarity with the team and with Ride. Bringing him into the family was totally natural.
I'd say from Ride's standpoint, it was a no-brainer, and it certainly was construed as a power move, and it was a move that just didn't seem lowest common denominator. It seemed like Ride getting their footing back.
I was at the point in my career where I was at that point able to think about more than just my snowboarding. So we started, Holden was getting kicked off. We were starting to make movies. And they were super down to like help fund that. And it was just a really good fit.
Mikey was cool because I remember him before he got famous at snowboarding, and then I watched him blow up, and he just never changed a speck. His attitude, nothing changed. Still kind, still spoke with everyone, and that always resonated with me.
He's always been sort of ahead of the curve and such an inspiring human, and being wanting to tell other people's stories and not necessarily focus on his own.
He revolutionized snowboard videos. I think he's the one who really ushered in the era of like, hey, we could just make a video. Our little crew, we can make a video.
I mean, Love Hate was monumental to people in my generation, my era, my age group. Coming from skateboarding, we wanted something that was rough around the edges. And then you take that Kids Know crew, and they pretty much changed the entire game as far as new rail tricks, looking cool while you're doing it, great soundtrack.
Daryl just showed up with like dripping style.
And Hebel just had like super sick style. Like he just kind of flowed down rails, and he would hit big stuff too.
You're watching their parts, and you can tell that something was changing. They started to go about filming a video part in a way that was planned out and methodical.
Mikey leveraged his entire career on Kids Know. Like it was literally like, if that was gonna fail, it would have been hard to get a second chance, and he was all in on that.
Hebel's clothes started getting tighter and tighter, and then his tricks started getting more technical and more tactical. And I think those guys just wanted to put out like the most technical street video possible. I didn't think much about it as we were shooting it. It's a lot of sequences, because what they were doing was stuff that had never been done before. And it was still in the film days too. So you'd sit there, if they didn't land, just throw the roll over your shoulder, and at the end, throw it all in the trash, and end up, sometimes with Hebel, have like 30 rolls next to you. Luckily, the magazine was funding the rolls. But it was insane just to see these new tricks go down and kind of snowboarding just evolve right in front of you. That's why I got into photography, was to be a part of that and see snowboarding progress. And that was definitely happening with Love Hate.
I had been doing some big ollies. I started with the bigger ones at like Brighton, and then I ollied this fence over here. But I'd been seeking out a big ass set for a long time that was like, I just wanted to see what I could do. I rolled up to that and I'm like, I don't think I can do this, but I want to try.
Oh my God.
I landed right at the bottom of the rail. It's perfect. It was Johnny Miller, Louif, and me pulling bungee, and he tells the story as like, I was standing next to Lou when Lou told him to take a deep breath. Take your time, don't rush it.
I was like, ready? He's like, no, you're not ready. He's like, take 3 deep breaths, and then you tell me when you're really ready. And I was like, did that, and then fucking was like, all right, I'm ready. And boom, sent it, and that's the one I landed. And it was like, straight up. Louif was, I had to do the physical part, but he did the mental part, removing the barrier in the moment.
Fucking awesome.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, get the fuck out of here.
And it was sick because like right when we landed, it was like just this fucking explosion of excitement. And we just went back to the hotel and like had this insane party. It was just so much fun, dude. Like 50 people in 2 rooms. Like the pizza kids came and they fucking called work. We're like, we're not coming back. Like it was epic.
Mahaffey. Yeah, he's like the reason I was on Ride. Yeah, that dude, for some reason, he just had my back. And then in the end of his career, then I had his back, so it kind of went full circle.
Joel was a great snowboarder, man. He was a trip. He lived in Reno, but we'd go out and film in Sonora and snowmobile, and he would just step up. Not even warm up, really. He would like throw down first try.
Mahaffey was one of the most talented people coming up for sure in the whole game, and his style was amazing.
He was a kid when Ride launched, and he was he was literally, 14 or something when he was on the team. He had that style. Mahaffey's snowboarding, he never had to speak for his snowboarding did.
To be honest, for Ride, I think he was probably their most important rider because he weathered the storm through all the teams. He was kind of like the Allen Iverson of the Sixers. Like, he just kind of kept them relevant.
Listen, pick any city, the south side, the outside. It isn't pretty, the tots crying and shots fired. Protection there be the lopsided cop kind. You see the scene of a crime like every stop sign. My section of 21 pound is downtown. They walk around with the guns out. It's wild how the youngins is dumb proud, following the crowd now. Leading the blind with their minds up in a sound cloud. Ain't a lot of sunshine when you on a front line. Listening to that ghetto drum line. Ducking one time, thinking how the devil doesn't tire even sometime. Wondering how the fuck could one's rhyme be this unkind. Everybody cold to me, seem as though this bullshit the only thing that's sold to me. Being told we should hold on, getting old to me, I'm about to buckle. Cause holding tight, got my hands fully white knuckle. And to be honest, tomorrow is not promised. Whether you on the streets of Chicago or Botswana, you gotta be rock solid. Not to be outsmarted, to rise from rock bottom to one of the top scholars. I never asked what's the secret of success. With a target on your back and a scarlet on your chest. Listen, just get it, not a minute to rest. This is not a test, settle for the best, nothing less. Dig it, pick any city, the south side, the drought side. When EMS's arrive, well it's about time. People who just get their tops fry, get outlined. Minutes and seconds go clockwise, but not mine. Where I'm from, it's a war scene with morphine, scream for morphine, Zoloft and Thorazine. We don't subscribe to the grand scheme. The plan seems to be keeping us all sick. Selling the vaccines ain't a lot of fun time when your only son died and your world's coming untied from the inside. That's between affection and depression, it's a thin line. Stress and pressure here is multiple.
Joel and Ben really just salt of the earth for real. I mean, the level of comedy and the like grits and the whole thing, it was endless fun.
I think it was like Jack was the team manager back then of Ride. I think it was just like talking to Mahaffey and Ashburner, and they were like, get this kid on, he's riding with us. I think I got in at like the perfect time. Like to ride out those years where like paychecks were sick. Photo incentive, they just throw you travel budget with no questions asked. I would hit all the stuff by myself, and then once I knew I could land like a few different tricks, then I would call up filmers and stuff. Yeah. So I would like get it done first and then know like, all right, at least I can do this.
We used to have so much fun when we would go to Vashon for the team meetings. They had this basketball cage and we would just battle. And I'm like a foot taller than him, so I would just stuff him, but he would never give up. We just laugh.
I think 16, my gym teacher was like, you keep acting like this, you're never gonna be shit. And I was like, I make more money than you right now. Like, I just remember it was so douchey, but like I had to say it because he was just riding me so hard. And then I was like, right after I said it, I regretted it, but I was like, now I look back, I'm like, solid burn.
Yeah, dude. Oh my God.
Like,
no, do it.
No, do it with those things like this. I don't want like one time only.
Like that right
like
there.
One time.
Do it.
Only.
Yeah, I'll just do it quick. Should I touch it first and then press it?
Just go quick.
Just do it.
Okay.
Okay, ready? Ready?
It's sickles.
What happened?
I fucked the car up because the roof's really tall and it didn't say anything.
So I did damage. Not too good.
Sickles.
Matt Sickles, I mean, I called him the silverback. He was built like a silverback gorilla. He was the strongest, kindest, happy-go-lucky dude ever. He was just a good-natured beast of a human who loved snowboarding, loved traveling, and I like that he liked all aspects of the sport. He liked powder, he liked rails, he liked park, he liked pipe. He really respected it all, which is cool because these days I don't think you see a lot of that. A lot of times you see a team manager come in and maybe they were an old rail rider and the whole team just gets built around that. Or they were an old big air dude and their whole team. Sickles is really cool with rounding out and staying true to that ride format of having a diverse group who does it all.
Yeah, I just remember a Sickles trip where he came back from a Europe trip using his phone GPS to find wherever they're going and came back with I think it was a $15,000 phone bill.
Mavid called me over to his office and he's like, how much do you think your phone bill is this month? I really have no idea. I was on international calling, and he's like, no, well, it turns out you weren't. And he's like, it was $20,000.
How did Dave react to that? There was nobody in the company that reacted well to that.
Anything less than that would maybe be workable, but I'm like, okay, this might be my third red flag, who knows? But it was all taken care of, and they credited us, and it was all okie dokie.
What?
2002 comes around, it's a perfect sunny day. A bunch of events got canceled that day all around the Olympics. So it brought this massive amount of people just by chance. Like everything, just the stars lined up to have a ton of people show up. A beautiful day out, it's almost 50 degrees.
It's this perfect day in Park City, huge half pipe, blue sky.
And boom, the USA sweeps it. And it was the changing of perception of snowboarding within the mainstream at that point.
I'm not going to say just Americans. Anybody in the world who had dedicated their life and chosen a career in snowboarding was better for those three people, Ross, Danny, and JJ, sweeping the Olympic podium in 2002.
There was noises that day in that stadium in Salt Lake City that I still haven't heard 20 years later. They packed so many people, they basically built like a half of a soccer stadium around a half pipe, and it had the full metal benches and the people were banging their feet. I mean, it sounded like a soccer crowd. When you would land airs or your friends would do stuff, it would just erupt like a stadium. And I still haven't heard those sounds or felt that since then. So that's probably the main thing that sticks with me. Obviously the visual of the crowd, but just the noise they were making was so cool and intense. I mean, you could just feel it in your chest. Right before the medal ceremony, the Foo Fighters were playing after us, and they ushered us in. They go to this trailer. These are the Foo Fighters. Go hang out with them for 20 minutes before you go out. And me and Danny were like, okay. We just go in there. We're all 20. Danny's 18. Ross is 22. And those guys were so nice to us, and they were so cool. And we just did shots of tequila with them before we went out for our medal ceremony and before they played. And I'll never forget that. It was just, I was sitting out there, we were all just sitting out there in the cold getting our medals, and our chests were all warm with some whatever tequila they were drinking. I was like, man, this is cool.
I'm gonna tighten my bindings up. There we go.
Shane Flood, there's no one like Shane Flood, and there still isn't, and there never will be. From his riding, to his personality, to everything about him. He's just a unique guy, but Shane and I were like the odd couple. We were polar opposites, but we really liked each other and got along, and I loved riding with him. We had great days together.
JJ is really cool. I traveled a lot with him, and he can ride everything. He won a bronze, but he's right here helping me build a jump. So nothing has changed. He's cool as shit.
Shane is the combination of three crazy characters mashed into one. Pick Prince, Dracula, and some just hesher. He's just awesome.
Well, I moved into the Juniper Springs house in Mammoth. It was essentially just a party house, and I had the loft, and it was so loud I could never sleep because people were always partying, and I just like to get up and go snowboard early in the morning. So I was like, I need to build a box so I can sleep to drown out some of the sound. And I was like, if I'm gonna build a box, it's gonna be a coffin. So I built it big enough for my TV and my VCR, and my dog slept in there with me. I even painted it black.
Who sticks out to me is characters. You gotta know who to cheer for. You gotta know who to root for. And you look at Mikey LeBlanc, one of the biggest characters to ever do it. Look at Shane Flood, sleeping in a coffin. These are characters. He would do switch straight airs, double poke. He was riding Mammoth, doing cab 7 double grabs and all kinds of crazy stuff. I know I'm cheering for Shane Flood. I'm on his team.
They called me up and they said, JJ, we want to get a photo of you. We have this idea. What do you think? You're bronzing by a pool with your medal with girls around you. I was like, well, I happen to be dating a girl who has a house with a gorgeous pool and she has a bunch of cute friends, so I think we can do it. I feel like this ad more people remember than anything in my career. People still talk to me about this ad.
were filming skits for Smell the Glove, and it was like a rock star trashing a hotel scene. When the camera was rolling, he just freaked out on the hotel room.
What do you mean, no salmon?
I felt like I was just kind of Groundhog Day. I was just doing the same thing over and over. You know, you learn some new tricks, but I felt like, okay, Mammoth early season, like, and then this, and then this. It was just so predictable all the time.
I was like, Shane, don't quit, bro. Like, you don't have to do what I have to like ride pipes and try and go 20 feet out. You can jump on chairlifts and flip off them. He was like Scott Stevens before Scott Stevens, to be honest. But I think he was just sick of the travel. I was bummed when he didn't want to be a pro anymore because he could still be going.
Maeve, how many hours of sleep did you get last night? 2? Hold up your fingers.
4 hours the past 2 days.
Oh my God.
It took several years of really grinding at K2 in order to feel like we'd sort of solidified and risen to the challenge. And I think, you know, it might have been 2003, 2004, that I think the industry as a whole was like, holy shit, how did these guys come back from the dead?
I think the K2 Ride merger helped Ride sharpen its blades because it was on a mission every day to be different and to push the boundaries and to be edgy and whatever else. And I don't know if you know, left alone, it would have had that daily 8 a.m. how we're gonna fuck with things today. And that's where you know, I think bringing them together helped that.
The biggest fear was getting in there and looking like we're vanilla with K2. We needed to separate ourselves as much as possible, and it started from the inside out. And we had to like be the exact opposite of everything K2 was. Otherwise, it wasn't going to show up on the sales floor. You know, people started saying, "Oh, look, they're the same graphics. This was a good," you know, there would be no reason to keep a Ride around in the long run. It would just all be K2.
One year, we had a particularly hard time with Transworld. We basically started the year saying we're going to try to get every single one of our ads in Transworld denied. And I think we were off to a pretty good pace. And we slipped a few past the goalie where you would have to go back and look at it.
Actually, we'd send it to Transworld because Transworld would deny it. And then we'd send the offensive one to Snowboarder and tell them that Transworld wouldn't run it. And they're like, we'll do it.
I mean, the lawsuits were always like something that was fascinating to me.
We had good ones from Anheuser-Busch.
Yeah, that was a big one.
There was an Olsen Twin t-shirt that I remember. I think I was the one that said cease and desist.
Altoids, they sure came and wanted their money.
Eddie Van Halen.
Led Zepp was not happy with one of the Ranquit Pro models that Ranquit designed.
Led Zeppelin said no, Mike said fuck them, and we're gonna do it anyway.
Lucasfilms.
I mean, it looked exactly like it. And we just came up with the story. It's just fucking Space Ranger.
Yeah. They still say that it's a Space Knight. It still claims it had nothing to do with it.
We knew we were walking down a fine line here, and there's no way we were gonna get rights to it. So we asked our lawyer, how can we pull it off? And we should have known because he had never even seen Star Wars. He didn't know who Boba Fett was.
K2 sponsored a Christmas tree decorating contest for the entire department. And, you know, everybody had their traditional with the baubles and, you know, the popcorn shit around it and cranberries. And
IT came with theirs decorated with CDs hanging on it. People really legitimately got into this.
And we showed up with a box. We put the tree through a wood chipper.
And we poured the Christmas tree out on the floor.
Couple sprigs on top.
And I just remember Robert was a little pissed.
Some people were just incredibly ridiculous.
It was really nice to be talking with a company that was open to what I wanted to do and like how I wanted to expand my career and grow and what I had to offer them.
Beeman's so great. She's one of my favorite people to snowboard with. She's always so positive. I travel with her a lot. You know, I drag her to these sales events. Like, yo, I got this shit in Europe. You want to come? And she'd be like, okay.
She has pushed women's snowboarding and snowboarding as a whole, and then not to mention that she's just like the coolest to hang with.
You know, like if you look at the OG crew, like Hannah would fit in there today. So I think there's definitely, like, she's a perfect representative of someone. She's been with the brand for a long time. I think that she is an incredibly important woman in the space.
One of the only people over the course of the last 2 decades to show up at the trailhead with a snowmobile with Travis Rice. You know, there are a lot of dudes who are like, I'm good. And Hannah is one of those go-tos.
She back 7 the fucking Baker Road Gap. She's a goddamn boss.
They wanted to give me the opportunity to develop my own boards, and that really helped my riding because I learned what I like in a board, and then I felt so much more confident. And then they let me do my own thing, and they really supported me as an individual, and I can't thank them enough for that, because that really set the foundation for what I was able to do the following like 10 years with them. It was amazing.
To ride like Jake, it doesn't just happen like that. Like, he has so many building blocks that led up to this moment where he can just ride a mountain so beautifully and read the terrain and pop off of things with strength and finesse. And it's a pretty amazing thing. Like, it's so hard, and people don't realize how hard it is to ride a mountain the way Jake does. I try. I always am like, oh, I'm gonna try and Blauvelt this thing, and I just tomahawk.
I mean, who doesn't like Jake Blauvelt snowboarding? If you don't like Jake Blauvelt snowboarding, you don't like snowboarding. That's all there is to it.
There's just so many people in the puzzle at Ride in the facility that, like, behind closed doors, or, you know, that aren't even gonna get to be able to be in these interviews, you know, that really contribute to the whole brand, you know, and so they're down to never be able to show face and give their story, but they want to contribute. So I think that says a lot about the brand as a whole. It's just how down people are.
I was blindsided. I was literally in shock. Wasn't expecting it. Pissed off.
It was tragic for me, you know, having spent 21 years at Ride. But at the same time, it was such a relief and kind of a load off of me personally, you know, because I felt, you know, after, you know, with the transition into K2, after Pogue left, you know, all of those things that happened, I felt like the entire kind of burden of the company was on my shoulders because I was the only one left from that original crew. And so after I left, it, you know, it took a lot of soul searching, but, you know, much more relaxed now.
There was a period of time in snowboarding, 2011, 2012, where the wheels kind of came off for a while, just in general. And part of that was the snow year, right? It was we had great snow years all the way up to 2011. I think it was 2012 season, this completely dry season around most of the world, terrible winter. Everything came crashing down. I think just snowboarding in general, the hype kind of came off of it. You know, at that time, it was a period where every winter sports business was looking for what's the answer, what's the big change that's needed, and the decision was made to basically start from the ground up and rebuild Ride, and that was including, you know, people, team, and everything.
Yeah, when the Mavises got laid off, it was like this crazy feeling of like that era was over, and it was kind of like, okay, we have to come together. We have to, like, almost like our leader was gone in a way. And it was like, we have to come together. We have to wrangle the troops and kind of like just stay the course and like, what is this gonna be? And not fuck it up.
So I was working at Capita, and then my old boss at K2, Jeff Matura, who was the vice president of marketing for all of K2 Sports at the time, called me up and was like, hey, I'm sure you heard what happened. We want to interview you for the job. And I was just super surprised. So they were having a sales meeting, and he called me in to do an interview during the sales meeting. So they were all at this hotel, and I was in like a weird sneaky back room. They were like, what would you do if you had the chance? What would you want to do with Ride? And I kind of was like, I would change all these things and I would take it towards this way. And, you know, and I was just being honest. I wasn't trying to like rip on anything bad. I was just like, if I was given like a blank canvas, what would I do? A couple weeks later, he gave me a call and said, do you want the job? And I was kind of floored, but of course I'm gonna take it. So the first person I hired who really, really helped reshape the brand was Tanner McCarty. And Tanner was a young, hungry kid from the East Coast. He was perfect fit, and I think between me and Tanner, we kind of started running and we started to build this excitement within the rest of the team that was there. When I first started, I felt like the product wasn't very cohesive. It was kind of all over the place. Lots of bright colors, lots of like cartoon graphics, and not a knock on anybody else. It's more just kind of like, that was maybe where the vibe was, and my vibe was way more simpler. So I'd go into like a meeting and I'd say, look, it's like, okay, new brand colors, black, white, gray, and you can pop a color like a tiny little bit here and there just so that it matches with something else, which is funny. But I think it kind of set the tone.
That was a real change from like what I had known of Ride. Like bright colors, kind of all this like craziness and funny haha to like, it got flipped real quick into like, we're going black, we're going simple, like everything got changed around. Like it just felt like a fresh start. And for me, I think kind of as I matured as a snowboarder, it fit me a little bit better as well.
The best snowboard teams that I was seeing were just groups of friends that thrived off of each other, and that was all you needed.
Like, that was really sick what he was willing to do with the money that he had right there. Because he could have bought all his old friends, you know? He could have made all this stuff that like a lot of people at this day would. They would just be like, instead of building a team, they would just buy a team. And these guys built one.
I was good friends with Pat Moore. So he was doing his video series, and one episode he brought Jake Welch back, and Jake had been kind of taking some time off.
That was right when Ride brought on Tidor, and Tidor was starting to rebuild the team and stuff. And Pat hit him up and was like, you're looking for someone, you should kind of look at Welch.
And Jake is just hungry in such good style and one of the nicest people you ever met. And he was kind of one of the big first real names that we brought into the team, and everybody was excited.
That time away, like that year and a half or a couple years, for me was the best thing, probably because I had to deal with some crap and work through it, but then I came back with just a different perspective and a whole new love and just approach to snowboarding.
When you get that kind of opportunity again, and someone's like, we want to just see you do it. Even if it's one part, we just want to see you do it. I thought that was dope.
Started snowboarding, I didn't even know you could become a pro, and then when you start to learn that you can become a pro and you can do these things, that's kind of like deep down, it's like a goal, you know, you really want to do that.
Yeah.
And then that happened. I was up at Mount Hood, and then Daryl was like, yo, do you mind staying up here to shoot some Howl Glows with me? Really what he was doing was just getting me to stay up there longer so that everyone could go back down to Govey and just kind of like get everything set up. And we're like driving down and pull up to Cobra Dogs, and there's just like a handful, like probably 20 people there, all my friends, and they all have snowboards that say Danimals huge across the top. And it was super cool.
I think Ride having a collection of riders that are legitimate kind of shit stirrers, you know, like snowboarders is good.
We all became the people and snowboarders that we are today together. No one came in ever and stepped on each other's toes. Nobody was like ever a hierarchy. There was never like a new person that got on that was above anyone else.
I
that good?
Oh, shit, dude. That was so sick. Oh my god. Oh.
Can I try on the do-rag?
Yeah, sure.
Yo, don't forget that salt.
What was Ojo to the snowboarding culture? Like, who was Dylan Ojo?
Ojo just had a presence that just, whenever he was around, he was loved. Just like everyone wanted to be around him, you know? Special human that's like, yeah, it's hard.
Oof. Ojo was, let me just take a second for this one because, yeah.
Fuck. I miss Dylan. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like sometimes people die and they like say shit about people. They're like, oh, that guy was the coolest or something. Like anyone who knows Dylan, like he actually was the coolest. Like he made you second guess what you put on when you woke up. You wake up, like walk out of the room and you look at Dylan, you're like, oh, fuck, like, what do I do? Like, should I go change my outfit? Like, how does he look so fucking cool right now? Like, and like he's just like an absolutely larger than life human being, and it turned out that he really was.
He meant so much to me because he represented something you don't see in life very often. I mean, fuck's just snowboarding in life. This charisma that's unparalleled, and this ability to make friends with anyone around him, and for him to treat you as who you are and to treat you with the respect you deserve. I mean, I just, from the moment I met him, it was just as if like he had known me my whole life.
You know, there's a lot of snowboarding is you talk shit in the car, you're talking shit on other crews sometimes, you're talking shit on someone's style. And with Dylan, you'd never hear that. He would never have talked shit on anyone. And I just remember looking at that, like he's way younger than me, thinking like, damn, I'm learning something from this kid.
He was the best friend you could ever ask for, like just the most positive and motivating and resilient friend. And like seriously was like the best example of what it meant to be a role model and an inspiration.
The amount of stuff that kid had going for him at that point in time was like more than anyone would accomplish in like a lifetime. Like he was a pro snowboarder, yeah, he was a DJ, he was planning to start the foundation even before he had passed. Like that was like well in the works before. He was always doing something, he was always doing something cool, he was involved in something cool. And it would have been so sick to just see like, you know, where is this guy in 5 years? What else has he accomplished? What else has he tackled, you know? So he kind of had life by the balls at a very early age.
He didn't have to make the content because he was the content, you know? Like he didn't have to like try to be someone. He was it. He was that guy.
His light shined a little brighter than most people's.
Yeah, he had like an aura about him. Yeah, of confidence. Whatever else style you could just see, you'd want to follow. Immediately want to follow. If there was someone in a room, you'd be attracted to him. You're like, I want to go hang out with this guy.
Everyone's favorite, no matter who you were. Like, you didn't even have to know what was up with snowboarding, and you knew that this guy had something special.
At this point, his smile is just ingrained into everyone's head and will be forever.
so talented that what he did leave behind is timeless. Even though he was still just at the beginning.
Ojo was like the glue on the trip that made sure you always had a good time, whether you were being productive or not. He was definitely the person to remind you that you were like doing something so cool that we're so lucky to do. And he was taking advantage of that for sure.
He made the impossible seem possible. And I think that's like a hard thing to do.
Oh, all right.
Steve, these headphones are fucked up. It's only coming out at one side. Like should I just bear with it or what? Shit.
Snowboarding can be very unforgiving. And you can be the it kid one moment, and you can be the high-paid snowboarder at another moment, and then you can just disappear and be forgotten in a blink of an eye. It's snowboarding, and it's arguably one of the worst parts of snowboarding. And Jed has gone through the valleys and mountaintops of all those things.
Wiz calls me up and he's like, I'm gonna tell you something, and there's only one person I'm gonna call for this. Jed's back. He's on Adidas. He's filming this video. He needs snowboards. Figure it out. And I was like, holy shit. And this is a time where there was no spot open. There was no money freed up. It was like, this is an opportunity that you cannot sleep on. And I had to take it right up to the top.
I'm sure that the higher ups were like, really? Like, this guy hasn't snowboarded in a couple of years. Like, are you sure that this is like the right move? And that was, I think, a pretty good move for Ride. Like, he's one of the best to ever do it.
As a fan of snowboarding, I was just like, yes, this is a win. We need this. And there's not too many people that come along like Jed. There just isn't. He is special. He's different. He is a once-in-a-lifetime gift to snowboarding.
I think he's one of the best snowboarders of all time and most underrated. Like, pulling him out of retirement essentially to do those projects, fuck yeah, that's what it's about.
I think Jed, he's a one in a generation type snowboarder, you know? They don't come very often, and I think he's just got it all around, and it's a rare thing.
Jill came along at the right place at the right time with the right attitude and the right athletic ability and the right eagerness to want to learn.
Like, it's Jill ain't on the fucking team because she's a girl. She's an amazingly good snowboarder and with a really good style and a great personality and can fit in any group, and she deserves the world.
I would say that Jill right now, today, is my favorite style, both on a snowboard and a skateboard.
She's just doing shit that pushes the boundaries, that makes you think, that makes you take down kind of all walls, and it's just like, this is just a human, and it's a really fucking cool human. And I want to be like her.
It sucks, but snowboarding is run by dudes, and there's always going to be more dudes in the room. And then when you have like a Hannah or a Jill that can just be in the room and completely own the table, it's powerful to watch. It's cool. And then you put them on a snowboard and they back it up too.
She's just so good, and I feel like she has so much to offer, and this is like just the beginning of what we're going to see out of Jill.
Without Reed, I wouldn't be where I am in snowboarding today. And we have this like bond that we kind of like got on at the same time and kind of like have been put in these positions to where we work together, which we do really well. And he just makes everything more fun.
Little angry man. He looks like this like pure evil on a snowboard. Like they just released him out of a lab and he's like, ah! But yet he's so nice.
Well, my perspective on rides kind of hype and product. There are eras where, early days, a lot of hype. Then product elevated, and then some of the hype went off. And then the hype would come back and the product. And so these rare areas, like I think we've got this great era of a lot of incredible hype and a lot of great product. And when those two things hit together, like that's where the magic happens. It's those unfortunate little windows we've had where it's like, oh, we got one and not the other. And that's just tough overall if you don't have both.
Rides had its ups and downs, but the most important element, I think, about Ride for me that maintained their longevity is the true commitment to like engineering and their boards and I remember coming back from M3 back onto a ride board with slime walls, and it was like, wow, I've been riding a shitty board for a long time. And these boards were so good.
We did a lot of experimenting with weird shit. There was nothing that was ultimately consistent other than our attitude, I feel like. But mostly we're just like, seriously, honestly, just having fun and flying by the seat of our pants.
You're not just strapping on a piece of sports equipment, you're strapping on a story and a vision and almost a piece of your life that gets you excited to have fun on snow and rip down a mountain. Like this is the funnest shit ever.
We were digging through some old files and we found that first catalog where Tim Pogue had written that letter. It was like, Ride is the snowboard brand for the people.
I mean, to me, I was like, great, I don't have to write that again. It's for the people who are on the floor selling the shit. It's for the people who are aspiring pro snowboarders who are grinding on their own and spending their own money. It's for the recreational dad who just wants to get out there on the weekends. It's for the up and coming girl who has all these hurdles that no one even knows about that are just gonna be really hard to get over. And it's for all these different people, and it was just for the people. There's no bullshit in that statement. It's just real, and it's as old as 1992, which not a whole lot of brand like statements were being constructed back then. There was a few important ones, but it wasn't a dime a dozen.
It felt like I came home after not being home forever.
He cares and he wants to know how you're doing. And it's not like, hey, what did you film? It's, hey, how are you? And like, to me, that's so important because at the end of the day, we all are humans and we all have feelings and we're all doing these things. And with Russell, he like cares to hear about that. He cares to hear about what you care about and like what you think is cool and what you don't think is cool and why.
My mom had told me, Russell, the reason we study history is so we know what's gonna happen in the future.
You know, Russell coming back now, he can guide kids with more of a position of I'm with you, rather than like I'm this old burnt out guy that do what I, do this. He's like, I'm right here with you. They have just as much value in me, so trust me and do this and don't do that. Don't sign this. Don't sign that. Change it to this and do the right thing. And I think that's huge for snowboarding for the future is look back to see what's to come.
We started Ride, and we got to build it out ourselves, and we were successful. So, that's it's pretty emotional as a kid. And as an adult, to look back at that, and like, wow, I was kind of a mess, but I pulled that off.
It was really interesting coming from what Ride was all the way through the loop. It's like you're going downriver in a canoe. And you come to, oh shit, there's some falls and whew. All right, is everybody in? Oh, we lost a few. Okay, a little further down the road. And now we may have to pick up the canoe and walk it around something. That's what happened. And it was crazy that there was that many of us that stayed that tightly connected.
What I would say is hard work pays off.
This is where it worked at Ride. I think we all related to each other as people.
I feel like super accepted at Ride, and that's like the nicest feeling ever. And like have a place in snowboarding where I feel comfortable, in a place where I can be creative and be appreciated. It's amazing.
Really why it grew to what it was today is in the beginning, it was, this wasn't a corporation or a company. We were all a family.
That original Ride crew was the highlight. Pretty emotional. Highlight.
I wasn't just the token chick. I was part of the fam, and I'm just so grateful for that kind of friendship.
It was amazing. It was like they caught lightning in a bottle.
This is something I feel passionately about because Ride is my family. Those people I work with, that is my family.
Definitely always felt welcome, and everybody did their part to make it something incredible.
We played together, we worked together, we drank together. Some people slept together and fell in love together and went on to get married from there, It was like the whole thing was just like a beautiful romantic period of time.
There's a million reasons why Ride should be out of business. I definitely think that it found its way through all the hiccups because there was a really strong foundation and good bones at the beginning of this thing.
The Ride crew has always been the tightest crew. Maybe in all of snowboarding. I love these guys, they're my family.
It's not just a team, it's beyond that. We're all homies, good homies.
Camaraderie, lifelong friendships. It's more about the people and the experiences that I take away more than anything else.
It's all hands on deck at Ride, and I think that's so important because that is what creates the vibe of the brand, and how everybody does work together and how everybody works well together.
To us, everything was about one thing: fun, having fun. Are you having fun? And that's it. If you can answer that yes, then you can come with us. You're in the Ride crew.
We just got to keep, like you said, just keep cooking. You got to keep your foot on the gas pedal, stay in the kitchen.
Yeah, keep the culture aspect fully in it too, you know?
Absolutely.
Too many people reminiscing on like the old days, like it used to be this, or remember this graphic, remember when so-and-so did that over this, and the way I see it, it's like, we're still out here, so let's make some like new moments for another generation to be like.
Let's keep it going.